Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com. It is your one-stop shop for all things Holy BatCast. You can also find us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, and you will find us. If you love the show so much that you want to really support it in an official way, we are on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And so I have to give a little shout out to our latest patron, Mr. Chris Harrelson. This is Woody Harrelson's nephew. A lot of people don't know that. Fun fact. So Chris, say hi to Uncle Woody and thank you for being a patron. It really does mean a lot to us. We know you don't have to do it, but you do it. Do you know why? Because you're cool. So thank you for that. Again, you can do that at patreon.com/holybatcast. We are part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. So if you are looking for other shows to enjoy, you can check those out at rf4rm.com. As always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova. And if you'd like to follow me, you can do that on Instagram or on Twitter. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, it's all about the birds in this episode. This episode has gone to the birds. It's about the birds of prey. We are going to be talking about a set visit to Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. And then we're going to talk about the latest bits of marketing we've gotten around the film as we lead up to its big release in February. And joining me is an old friend, someone you have heard on this show, you have heard on his own podcasts. He has been skulking about the geek film community for many, many years now. It's our old pal, Sean Gerber. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me back.
It's good to have you back. And Sean's the one who went to the set, not me. So I'm just going to listen and ask questions, and Sean can do the talking. I can just chill.
Yeah, so...
I like when I get to do that. Give me a break.
This is why I like being a guest on podcasts more so than hosting, is usually I get to be the one who sits back. But I know this one, I got to carry a little bit more of the weight here for going over this set visit. So
I can make stuff up. I could just be like, look, and then the Scarecrow showed up, played by Steve Buscemi. I didn't see it coming.
I mean, you've seen enough from the trailer and whatever little footage we've seen to maybe take a few guesses that may not end up being that far off. But yes, I was part of a select group of journalists who got to go to the set for Birds of Prey. They shot it on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. We went there back in March. And so we got to take a look at a lot of things. So some of this stuff you're already caught up to us on if you've been watching the trailers, like you've seen a lot of the costumes that we saw, because at this point when we were on this set visit, I think at this point that video was out that kind of teased the cast of Birds of Prey. I think that had already come out.
That was winter, so I want to say that was sometime around the February, March as well.
Yeah, so I think that had already been out. So we saw some additional costumes for Harley and Huntress and Canary, and you've seen most of the costumes that we saw. I think all of them actually you've seen in one piece of footage or another as it relates to this film so far. So you already kind of get a sense of what the costumes look like. You also get a sense of the color palette, which was the first thing that really jumped out to me between the costumes. And when we were on set, we started out in this conference room that had a bunch of concept art and little different props and things like that were all over the place and kind of gave us a good sense of the film visually. And you've already probably picked up on that, really these highly saturated colors, these pastel almost colors that you see in this color palette that director Kathy Yan is bringing to it, as well as production designer KK Barrett. It's a very colorful movie. It totally has its own look, its own feel, its own vibe, and that really jumped out to me, and I really enjoyed that when I was on the set, because I certainly couldn't say that it looked like some other comic book based or superhero based movie that we had already seen. So that visual style that Kathy Yan is bringing to this, I really latched onto when we were on the set visit. But there's other stuff. I mean, just getting a sense of some of the characters. I mean, I know one of the issues has been is Roman, played by Ewan McGregor, is Roman Sionis going to wear that black mask? Now it appears that that's part of it. When I was on set, I got the impression that that wasn't part of it. I think that's something that maybe I don't know if that was changed in reshoots or they were just hiding that, but we know that based on the set visit, the whole idea of that identity of Black Mask, that's the name of his club. In his apartment, he has a lot of masks all over the place. They're mainly decorative, so he's got those all over the place, but we didn't really get
like
the sense
Norman Osborn in Spider-Man.
Yeah, sort of.
Remember that?
So,
how that was sort of how they tried to, they had him have masks everywhere. So that's when he put on the Green Goblin mask, they were like, oh, see, it's already a thing.
It's kind of that. Although it's really more of like these crushed velvet suits that he's wearing. Seems to be more of his look throughout the film. But apparently there's a mask now. So hopefully that proves to be the case when we actually get to see the movie. But so that was one thing that I was, just the bat nerd in me was kind of, giving side eye to on the set visit and hoping that wasn't just going to be the case.
Yeah.
But there were other things we found out about right away. I mean, that was when they, of course, confirmed that Harley was going to have a hyena. The hyena, by the way, I don't know if this name it has stuck all the way through production, but they told us on set visit the hyena's name was Bruce. And so when we asked, is there a reason for that name? And they said they weren't going to spoil what the reason for that name is. We all know a pretty good reason for that name, but how does Harley know that name? How does Harley know that name?
So there have been murmurs that have come out recently. It is still Bruce. It's on her little necklace as well. And so, number one, I didn't know there was only one hyena. I guess in my mind, there's always been two.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's only one.
But yeah, so I don't know where the source came from. Maybe it, I have no idea. But I saw recently that it is named Bruce after Bruce Wayne just because she's infatuated with Bruce Wayne in Gotham.
Ah, well, there you go.
Not necessarily like because of Batman, but just because of Bruce Wayne.
It's not a bat pun. So maybe it's this thing of, I don't know. Maybe she always had a thing for Bruce and Joker knew it. And so this is a way of, since she's broken up with the Joker recently, maybe this is the way of making Joker jealous. Not that there's any hint that Joker's in this movie beyond him. We know that he's present. I don't know that it's actually, we're going to get a close up of him in, for an initial breakup between Harley and Joker. So I don't know I don't think we're actually going to see Harley doing that, but maybe that's her own, just subconscious or not so subconscious. That's her own way of getting back at Joker, is to get herself a hyena and name it after the guy she had a crush on that maybe Joker was jealous of. I don't know. It's Harley Quinn though, so it's not like everything she does and every decision she makes has to make sense.
Sure. Okay, that's cool. So, first of all, the fact that you've been sitting on this since March has got to be so frustrating. Because I know that you had the similar situation with Shazam, as you went to the set visit for Shazam, and then you're like, I can't talk about it for 6 months, but it was cool. And you didn't even tell me about it. So
yeah, well, they make you sign a pretty good NDA, so
you can be trusted.
It's you gotta keep that stuff to yourself sometimes. So anyway, when we went to there was a lot of cool stuff. I think my favorite set though that we saw, it's the main set that we actually walked through. I mean, some of it we just saw in the form of concept art, as well as just there were some kind of preview images. There was a little sizzle reel that we were shown, although at that point everything was very rough because, of course, at that point I think they were about 2/3 of the way through production, which sounds like a lot, but your VFX obviously aren't in yet. You're not really doing any of that stuff, so it was rough. They didn't show us a whole lot in terms of footage, but we did see the big kind of third act set piece of being Amusement Mile, which should sound familiar to our Arkham game fans. Not that that's the only place that you hear that name, but there's this kind of fun house called the Amusement Mile, and that's where there seems to be this big showdown. And that was the actual physical set that they walked us through, was something they were in the process of building, which is in this fun house. There's this massive room that is basically full of trampolines. So I don't. So it definitely seemed like a pardon the pun, pretty good jumping off point for an action beat. Like, it looked really cool and just zany and out there, and just never would have expected anything like it. And then we actually did get to watch a little bit of filming. So most of the cast was there that day. They were shooting while we were on set, and we got to watch a scene that involved just about everybody. Well, no, Ewan McGregor was obviously not involved in that scene, but Margot Robbie was there as Harley Quinn. Mary Elizabeth Winstead was there as Huntress, of course. Journey Smollett was there as Canary. Rosie Perez was there as Montoya. So we had the main principal female members of this cast of this girl gang of Birds of Prey. Oh, and also Cassie Kane was there. So we had most of the main cast, and the sense that I got from this is it definitely felt like kind of the setup scene going into the third act, big climactic battle. And that was the one. This movie they were describing it on set as an origin film, not for any one specific character, but for the team. And that's definitely what the scene that we saw kind of reflected, because it was pretty obvious in the scene that a lot of these characters hadn't really met yet. They had been following each other for one reason or another, and had some different interactions with one another, but not really gotten to know each other, and certainly hadn't come together to form anything that might resemble a team or a gang. That was all about to happen right then with the scene that we were watching. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of the pacing of this film, is that it's almost like everybody's chasing each other up until they get to this moment where they can actually come together and form the Birds of Prey.
Okay, that's interesting. So you got to see all the female leads.
Yep.
But no Ewan, no Zaz?
No Zaz, no Roman, so nothing like that. Although Roman was being referred to in the scene, so he was not physically present, but his name was coming out of their mouths. Speaking of things coming out of their mouths, this whole is this PG-13 or is this R-rated? It's totally R-rated, and they didn't want to commit to a rating on set. Of course, we asked about that, but it was R-rated the whole way. In every single take, I mean, the F-bombs were flying freely on every take that we watched of the scene between Harley and Huntress and Cassie and everybody. They was all going. It was like a bunch of seventh graders who just now became brave enough to start using the word amongst themselves, but wouldn't dare do it in front of their parents. That was what it sounded like with how liberally they were using the word. And I don't say that as a criticism, just to point out that clearly I think they've known all along that they were going for an R rating, unless there was going to be a last minute change for some reason. If they lost their nerve, that they would go back down to PG-13. Even Harley Quinn's wardrobe that day, there's that shirt that she wears in the trailer that says Harley Quinn, and there's this huge space between the Harley and the Quinn on the shirt. That's because the shirt says Harley effing, but it doesn't abbreviate it to effing. It says the actual word Harley effing Quinn all over the shirt. So even down to Harley's wardrobe, they were going for that R rating.
Got it. Well, and I feel like in one of the trailers she says that I'm Harley effing Quinn or something like that. So
yeah.
But I mean, if they're saying it in every take, it seems like you can't cut around it to make it PG-13. It just seems like, yeah, I mean, and we assumed that. That's sort of what we had heard, but it hadn't been confirmed, I guess. But yeah, it sounds like that was always the plan.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, there was no, even though they wouldn't say that on set, but that's kind of where, there was only so much they were willing to reveal, or even ideas that they were willing to commit to or not commit to. I mean, when we were on set, they wouldn't even commit to whether, how does this film fit in the DC universe? Kathy Yan had said it's not going to be definitively marked in this film how far apart it's set from Suicide Squad. And there wasn't even a commitment producer Sue Kroll, when she talked about it, she was talking about it really being more of a standalone. She was clear to point out that she wasn't speaking from, and I'll just read the quote. She said, "I can't speak for the studio, but this is a standalone film, and obviously Harley really popped coming out of Suicide Squad, and actually the idea for this movie is Margot's idea of a girl gang film, but this is a standalone movie, and it's not a sequel or tied in any way to Suicide Squad." So they say that, but then Harley Quinn's bat from Suicide Squad is in the movie. Right. So it's a smaller version of the bat, but it's still there. And so there is continuity between this film and Suicide Squad. I feel like with some of this stuff, particularly with the DC movies, they got to get out. They can't get so hung up on the semantics with these talk tracks. I mean, whether it's Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot saying Wonder Woman 84 is not a sequel to Wonder Woman, of course it is. What do you mean? We understand that.
Right.
We understand. We get it that sequels can still be, or movies that are part of a connected universe, since Birds of Prey is not a direct sequel to Suicide Squad, that something can be part of a larger continuity and be a standalone film at the same time. And I feel like there's a certain amount of that terminology that Warner Brothers just isn't comfortable with, and because it was just kind of silly to have this talk of this is standalone, it's not a sequel or tied in any way to Suicide Squad, when quite obviously it is. It's starring the breakout character of Suicide Squad.
She still has the same tattoos. You know, she breaks up with Jared Leto's Joker.
Right.
How much of that we see, we don't know. But still, yes, this absolutely is tied to Suicide Squad. But yeah, I do notice that they've all sort of tried to dance around it. And it's like, but why? Like the same thing with the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one. He's like, oh, it's not a sequel, it's a reboot, whatever. And then, but yeah, here's all the people from the first movie coming back. Yeah. So yeah, it's a sequel.
No, it isn't. It's
a sequel. It doesn't mean you can't.
Word.
It doesn't mean you can't change the tone, have a different take, or whatever. It's still a sequel. Just call it that.
I don't understand the tap dancing around this terminology that isn't nearly as big of an issue. It's not an issue at all, and actually, they're the ones making it an issue by dancing around these kinds of things, when it's not really hard to say, yes, this is still canon with the universe that we've had, but this is a standalone story. So that movie is part of Harley Quinn's history, but we're not really focusing on that. We're not really carrying forward the plot threads. We're just now moving into the next chapter with these characters. That's really not that hard to say. And I think everybody kind of gets that. Sue Kroll also did say, because there was a question that was asked about whether or not this film would be planting seeds for any other films, because we know there have been rumors about the Batman universe or the Batman corner of a DC universe of movies, and of course there are rumors around Batgirl. Sue Kroll also said in no uncertain terms that Batgirl is not in this movie at all. I don't know if that would change after the fact, after the set visit, but at that time, it was a hard no on Batgirl being in the movie. Not that we expected her to, but if there were any rumors that anybody was clinging to, maybe time to not set yourself up for the strong potential of disappointment if you go into Birds of Prey expecting Batgirl. But as far as planting seeds, referring to other potential films coming up, Sue Kroll said that there's none of those things. Of course, she said they would obviously love to expand this world of Birds of Prey should they eventually have the opportunity to do a sequel. But she said don't look for Easter eggs that are pointing you to what's going on in other movies, at least not right now. But I should also say that this is back in March, 2/3 of the way through production. We also know there were some reshoots and additional photography that were done with Birds of Prey. And so any of the things that they told us back in March were potentially subject to change. So these are all things that they could have ultimately, changed their minds about and maybe decided they did want to refer to something that might be coming up in another movie somewhere else in the DC universe.
Mm-hmm, right. So going back to the Batgirl, though, I don't think anybody expected Batgirl. I do think that a lot of us wondered, are they going to set up Barbara or somehow refer to Barbara, especially because Barbara often is included in Birds of Prey adventures, and also is the same writer, right? It's Christina Hodson who wrote this one. She's writing Batgirl. She's now writing The Flash. I guess they really like her. But so I think that there was enough connective tissue where people went, well, maybe they do want to try and use this to at least set up Barbara. So is it semantics of there's no Batgirl?
Well, she was asked specifically about Barbara Gordon, and that was and she said no to that, and then just mentioned Batgirl. I think just using Batgirl synonymously with Barbara Gordon. So it was a no, but the question actually was Barbara Gordon, and the answer to that was no. Mm-hmm. Again, all of that could potentially be subject to change. Christina Hodson, who wrote this movie, keeps working on the Batgirl script. Hey, I kind of got something here. Maybe this works, and we work this into our additional photography. Okay, sounds good, and there it is. So I can't definitively rule it out yet, but at the time when we were on set, they weren't. That's not something they were tiptoeing around. They were just flat out saying that Barbara Gordon / Batgirl not in the movie.
No, and I honestly, that makes sense. I wouldn't expect it because the Batgirl movie still is such a big question mark. I feel like it's not firm enough for them to set it up. Like it doesn't have a director. It's not in pre-production. It is being written. It's in development. Could it go into actual production sometime soon? Sure, but it doesn't have a release date. So it's one of those, for me, movies where it's still a wait and see. Like, I'm not even convinced it's going to happen. Sure, it's in development, but we'll see. So I feel like for a movie that's still so early on, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to try and set it up with this movie that we're getting in a matter of months.
No, it really wouldn't. Because, you're writing a check that you have no idea if you're going to be able to cash it. Because, to your point, yes, Batgirl's in development, but Batgirl's been in development for a while now. Look how long it's taken to get a Flash movie, and I'm still not buying that release date. Tell me when they go into production.
Fool me 8 or more times.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
You guys tell me I'm getting a Flash movie 13 or 14 more times and don't do it. I'm going to be really upset. But yeah, with Batgirl, I mean, it hasn't been through the director carousel that The Flash has suffered through, but nonetheless, this is something that's been in development for a long time, but hasn't gained, at least as far as we know, any significant amount of traction, and not significant enough for Warner Brothers to feel like, okay, let's start teasing Barbara Gordon in this. Unless, if we're talking about people changing their minds, if they decided, well, we don't know what we're going to do with Batgirl, but we feel good about Birds of Prey, and the plan is that whether there's a Batgirl movie happening or not, if we get to do a Birds of Prey 2, Barbara Gordon would be in that, so maybe we'll tease it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So backing it up to like all the concept art and everything, anything there that kind of jumped out at you? You mentioned, the color palette, which I think, by now we've all seen enough to see that it's a very unique, very colorful palette that it isn't Suicide Squad, but it doesn't feel completely detached from Suicide Squad, at least like the marketing of Suicide Squad. If you remember that marketing, how bold and colorful that was. This feels like, I don't know, maybe a 45-degree shift where it's not the same, but it's still similar enough that I can see a connection there. It's just, you're right, more of a pastel, kind of a lighter palette than what we got for Suicide Squad. But any specifics as you were looking in this conference room? I've been in many conference rooms covered in art in my work, and then I'm just constantly scanning, being like, oh, what the heck is that? Oh, that's cool, that's cool. So anything in there that jumped out to you?
Yeah, the coolest thing to me was the amusement mile set. And, we didn't really get to see a physical exterior of it, but the concept art, I mean, it looks like a classic Joker hideout. I know it's not necessarily so cool. Joker's hideout in this movie. I don't know. I can't remember if they gave us the context for it. It might have been a former Joker hideout, or it's just the kind of place that Harley wanted to go to. But it's a really cool looking spot. And it does, as I said, I mean, it just looks like a classic, just warped circus carnival, amusement park Joker hideout that you've seen in Arkham games, in animated series, in comic books. Yeah, no, Joker's not there, but it's still cool as hell to see it. And, the different levels to it, from this massive trampoline room to an office that's upstairs that kind of overlooks the exterior as well as that trampoline room. We didn't really get to see that. We got to see the window that we know they're looking out at something. We don't get to see, obviously, the other part. All those things are shot separately. So we kind of saw this upstairs kind of office, which is of that same building. That's where they were in and having the scene that we got to observe as they were filming it. And it all just looked cool. I mean, we've never really seen a Joker hideout like that in a movie before. We just haven't. Mm-hmm. And even though Joker's not there, it's not any less cool. It wasn't for me anyway to see that something like that was going to be in a movie. I love getting those kinds of visuals translated from comics / animation / video games. I think it was kind of influenced by all of them, with, of course, having its own style. that KK Barrett was bringing to it as a production designer, and obviously Kathy Yan as the director. But it was very, very classic, I should say, Joker / Harley hideout in this case. I don't even remember if it's, they didn't really tell us why they're there exactly, what made, Harley and everybody else want to go there in the first place. But we know once they are there, there's going to be a little bit of a meetup with the Birds of Prey, and they better get together fast because trouble's on the way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, when I first started seeing glimpses of that locale, that immediately got me excited because you're right. It's such a quintessential comic book locale, whether it's associated with the Joker or Harley or Batman or all the above. Like, that's just one of those things that we've seen in animation, in comics, and we haven't really gone there in the movies. And that got me really excited. So that's great to hear. You mentioned the Black Mask Club. Did you see anything on what that looks like?
I mean, it just kind of looked like a club to me. I'm not much of a club goer, so it's just the picture of a club in my mind.
Okay.
So it has, kind of the logo is like kind of the hands with, the black hands with like the eyes in, between the fingers or whatever that we've kind of seen in some of the artwork. Like, it's just that with, more of the same, bright, super saturated colors and everything that we're getting throughout the movie. So it's all part of that. The thing that really struck me more with respect to Roman Sionis, it was the apartment with, this mask collection, and they're all, I don't know, some of them probably just different tribal masks or, other masks from other sources. Like, he's just got this extensive collection, and yes, all of the masks happen to be black. So, what are the odds? But yeah, that set actually looked pretty cool, even though there's a part of me that's rolling my eyes at it because I'm like, this can't be why he's Black Mask. Like,
yeah, he's got to put one of these things on.
He's got to just pick anyone. I don't care, just wear one. But despite my my fears as a fan, the set itself for his apartment looked really cool, and his costumes and everything look cool. Like, I think Ewan McGregor looks great in the footage that we've seen from this movie so far. I think it's clearly going to be a departure from the source material, although, he might end up being a really brutal character in this. I mean, it's, even though he's got, a little bit more, I don't know, he's maybe a little more flat. He's certainly a little more flashy than we normally expect from Roman, but that's okay. I mean, as long as he's still a brutal bad guy who puts on a black mask, that's still going to be Black Mask enough for me. Yeah,
no, I agree. That's cool. So you spoke with the producer. You mentioned some quotes from that. Who else did you get to talk to while you were there?
Yeah, we talked to producers Sue Kroll and Brian Uncless. We talked to the production designer KK Barrett. We talked to the costume designer, whose name was Aaron. Let me see, what was their last name? Oh, Aaron. I knew it was a mispronounced name. Aaron Benach or Benach. And then we also talked to director Kathy Yan, and we spoke with Margot Robbie. And since she was filming that day, we got to speak with Margot Robbie in full costume and makeup as Harley Quinn, which was really cool.
That's awesome. Which outfit was it?
It was the Harley F and Quinn outfit. So she was wearing that shirt as she came in, and it was super cool. I got a chance to ask her about a couple things. I got a couple turns at asking her questions. I asked her because we knew about the hyena. I asked her about other, because she's a producer on this and a writer on this. I mean, she helped really conceive the story. And so since they lifted the hyena from the comics, I asked her about anything else they might have lifted, and of course got the usual of not wanting to say very much, but then she did say, of course, although I think we've seen it now in the footage too, like there's that Harley Quinn, she had seen a comic book where Harley Quinn was wearing roller skates, so of course she wanted to bring that into the movie, so it looks like that has a part to play in it with a little bit of Harley Quinn roller derby. So that was cool. And then I also asked her about what Kathy Yan was bringing to it, and that was something that I haven't talked as much about Kathy other than, from a visual standpoint, but how she got the job was really interesting. I mean, it's something that Margot Robbie talked about. It's, Margot Robbie had seen Kathy Yan's film Dead Pigs and was impressed by that. But then when they were, of course, taking meetings with several directors, and according to, as we got through these separate interviews between Margot Robbie and then Brian Unkelus and Sue Kroll, we interviewed those two producers together, but they all told kind of a similar version of the story about how Kathy Yan just came in and blew them away. Like, she came in fully prepared. She had this full deck of things that she wanted to do. She had made a little kind of sizzle reel, and Kathy Yan kind of retold that story a bit herself when we talked about her getting the job and going through that process, because we talked to her last. So by the time we got to Kathy Yan, the story of how she got the job was clearly like legendary on set. So because everybody was just really impressed by how prepared she was, how strong of a vision she had for it, how strong of a sense she had of what she wanted this story to be, what she felt that it needed to be. And obviously everybody involved felt like her vision was certainly the one to go with, but they were really impressed for her to get the job in the first place. And they were, of course, singing her praises as far as what they'd been doing and what they had observed from her for production so far. And they talked a little bit about the influences on the film. And Margot Robbie kind of likened it a little bit with respect to the Harley Quinn and Cassie relationship. She likened that to The Professional. And then when Kathy Yan, she agreed with that comparison. But when she was also just talking about the structure of the film, she said that it was a bit like Pulp Fiction meets Rashomon. So take that for what you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I think it points to just how eclectic this movie is going to be, because another point that kept coming up is that Harley Quinn is the narrator of this film. So do you think that would anyone ever really expect Harley Quinn to be all that reliable as narrators go?
Right.
So there's going to be, I think this movie is going to be, I think it's going to be pretty nutty. I mean, which is fine, which is par for the course with a character like Harley Quinn. But I think that's why you see these influences that are kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, actually. Did you see any of her breaking the fourth wall, addressing the audience, that kind of thing?
I think in the reel we heard, I didn't see any breaking the fourth wall. I would have remembered if I saw that, but there was definitely voiceover of Harley, and I think that points to kind of the narration. I think she's literally narrating the story a bit, but I don't know if it's going to be at that Deadpool level where she'll actually turn to camera and talk to you. Got it.
So it's interesting you mentioned that it's just super eclectic and super weird. And I have noticed that. And I've noticed that as the marketing has started to come out, fans seem to be very split on it. Some think it's looks amazing and they can't wait and they're really hyped. And some, I've seen quite a few fans be like, you know what, it's doing nothing for me. So I just think that's interesting. But for me, I don't know, I guess I like that because it means they're doing something different, right? Like right. if you're going to turn off part of your audience, it means you're taking some risks. You're doing something different. And I just appreciate that it is its own thing. Maybe I love it, maybe I won't, but I'm enjoying what I'm seeing of it. But it is interesting that I'm seeing the fan base somewhat split on what they're seeing.
Yeah, and I think I totally understand that. And my impression of it so far, I mean, having been on set and seeing some of the footage, I mean, even I don't know what to make of this just yet. But I think there is some genuine ambition to this. I think there's a genuine motivation to really want to do something very different. I mean, Margot Robbie also talked about why she wanted to do this in the first place and, what drew her to this. Is she wanted to have this girl gang type of movie. I mean, obviously we know that we're starting to see more movies that are led by female characters, specifically movies based on comic books, and that's great. But there's other things that we haven't necessarily seen. For example, we've seen plenty of guys team up, or we've seen guys team up with one or two women being part of the team, but we haven't really seen these all female or predominantly female team ups like Birds of Prey, specifically in this space. But and it's great to have that, but also they really want to have their own style to it. And thematically, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I mean, Margot Robbie also said the character that kind of really got her going on this wasn't so much Harley, but it was actually Huntress. Like, that was a big part of her initial pitch for the story, is when you have a character like Huntress who has more of that classic comic book character, tragic backstory type of thing, like that's what helps kind of ground the film. And keeps things on that mafia level, that gang level, that of course brings them up against a character like Roman. So that getting to be part of it, and I like that. I like that Margot. I think that speaks to Margot Robbie as a producer to be teeing someone else up like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I know you and I have been fans of for a long time, and it felt like it took forever for her to finally be in this genre, and now here she is. And I think that, as I said, that speaks highly of Margot Robbie as a producer, that what really got her going on this and where it really started to gain traction for her wasn't even the character that she would be playing. It was another character that actually helps take all of this crazy, wacky stuff of Harley Quinn, and then you have a character like Huntress. And I think Montoya will do this as well from the police side of things. These are the characters that kind of ground this. And Kathy Ann also talked about that. Like, this is more of a grounded kind of crime gang type of story. They did, most of their effects work and everything in camera. Obviously, there's a CG component to these movies. There always is. Birds of Prey is no different in that respect. But she said that most of what they've done here for this film is in camera. And I think that actually is showing up, because we'll see what happens with the story of this film. We'll see what happens with the performances and everything else. But one thing that does jump out to me in the footage we've seen, including the footage that played during the Gaming Awards, is the action looks pretty hard-hitting to me. I think the combat stuff that we're seeing all looks really good to me. It all looks really visceral.
It looks awesome. I mean, of the things, I'm liking, like, almost everything that I'm seeing. I certainly had the concerns that you had and that a lot of the fans had about, like, Black Mask. Because, like, listen, I get it. You paid for Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor is awesome. You're not going to hide his face for the whole movie. But at a certain point, Black Mask got to wear Black Mask. Like, so there are certain things like that I completely understand those concerns, and I'm with you on. But I love what I'm seeing of the visual palette. I love the colors. I love the sets. But to your point, the action looks amazing. It looks fantastic, and everything that I'm seeing, it seems like that's really one of the highlights of what this movie's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that for all the, and I know we can point to the action and we can point to the visuals, and maybe some would say, well, those are the superficial elements. Where is this movie going thematically? And that was something that, Harley talked about, is, exploring Harley's codependence on the Joker and moving on from that. I mean, that's why the emancipation, the word emancipation is in the title of this film for a reason, but it's also not just limited to Harley Quinn. I mean, Brian Ungless, one of the other producers, he talked about that, saying, like, that's, we kind of have in some ways this coming of age story, or these these key moments for these characters they're at these key points in their lives where they are breaking free from something, and for each of them it's something different. But I certainly think that that's a pretty good setup for some pretty strong thematic moments in this that I think would be pretty relatable to a lot of people, and provide opportunities to connect these characters. Because sure, if we're just having a good laugh with these characters and looking at some pretty sets and then seeing some cool action, then ultimately, that experience could end up being kind of hollow, and there's not much that we're really thinking about when we leave the theater, other than maybe being impressed by it for a couple of screenings, and then that's it, and we're never thinking about it again. But it sounds like they're coming from a place where at certain, I mean, we'll see what they ultimately achieve, but the goal is definitely there to have something very relevant thematically with these characters, and to provide ample opportunity for the audience to connect, not just be delighted by what they're watching the characters do.
No, absolutely. And it was in one of the trailers maybe where Harley said, she goes, "Oh, I realized I wasn't the only girl in Gotham who needed emancipation or freedom," or whatever it was that she said. So I love that as the element that does bring them all together and unites them. And to your point, that gives you a lot of dramatic material to play with, so that way it isn't just eye candy. But doesn't mean I can't enjoy some really awesome action as well. Like, there's no you can have both. And so I hope that this movie has both, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing as far as that goes. So as far as, like, all the different interviews that you did, any other you don't have to recite the entire interviews,
Yeah,
but any other choice little sound bites that you went, oh, this was really interesting, or this was kind of revealing.
I think those were the main things that jumped out. I mean, Kathy Ann got a little bit deeper into those, thematic elements. There was one part, where she was talking about the idea of women being competitive with one another and how this movie can explore some of that, but then also, in some of the, how these women can feel powerless against, some of the male oppressors in their lives, but also maybe in some of the ways that they treat each other, but then moving through that process and actually coming together as a group, as this Birds of Prey gang, like that, how that plays into the thematics and the emancipation of these characters. And I think there's a lot of that's also very timely and well, it's timely, also timeless and very relevant. So that was another thing that just kind of showed that there's more here. And Kathy Ann said like that was a part that was really a central part of her pitch, was to make sure that it wasn't just a superhero movie, that it wasn't just something that was the first girl gang movie for comic books or whatever. Like it wasn't just about that. She really wanted to tap into something real.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'm seeing that like as I'm watching the trailers and everything, because it's funny, when it first was announced, I think they've been calling it the girl gang movie since the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And then now that we're finally seeing more of it, you go, oh yeah, that's absolutely what it is. It's, they haven't been lying to us. It's truly a girl gang movie where these five women all get banded together throughout the course of the movie. To your point, sounds like, in pockets throughout, and then finally all together at once towards the end. But it does feel very unique, like something we haven't really seen before. So we talked about it was rated R. You talked about a lot of the effects being done in camera, which again is, I think, why those action beats that we're seeing in the trailer have me so excited, because they're really big wows, but they look real. That looks like they're being done by real talented stunt people, and I'm not seeing the CG, just a lot of the action beats that I'm seeing. Which leads me to budget. Like, there's been a lot of talk of what the budget of this thing is. I think the most common thing I've heard is between 75 and 100. Does that feel about right? What have you heard?
I mean, it looked expensive. I haven't heard anything as far as, besides whatever rumored numbers are out there. I mean, and who knows where it ends up with reshoots or additional photography. But, it didn't look like they went crazy with the spending. But yeah. It at the same time, it certainly didn't look cheap. It didn't look like they were it didn't look like they were pinching pennies on this one. The sets looked pretty good. I mean, and they were building actual sets. It's not like they were just having green screen and filling in the blanks later. I mean, there's some green screen elements to any of these sets, because there's some stuff you have to make up for yourself. But it looks like you had a lot of practical builds on these sound stages in Burbank, and they looked pretty good. So, it was John Hammond spared no expense, is what it looked like to me. But at the same time, like, it's because you're doing a lot of in-camera stuff. That means there's not necessarily massive, a bunch of CG characters that you're having to render over and over and over again through so many shots. So maybe those are things where it's not gonna, the budget doesn't balloon up to 130, 150, 200 million dollars. So yeah, if it ends up being somewhere in that 70 to 100 million dollar range, that sounds about right. But it looks like whatever the budget was, they gave this movie what it needed, because everything they showed looked good. There's actually one more thing, as I'm going back through the quotes from Margot Robbie, getting back to, I kind of joked about the R rating with, by highlighting the F-bombs that we heard on set as we were watching the filming. But Robbie actually got into that a little bit and said that, at that point, no final decisions had been made. But she did say that when she was on Suicide Squad, she felt with the PG-13 that she did feel like she had felt like she had to censor herself a lot. And she wanted to go deeper into what's going on with these characters, including Huntress, that she said, for example, and she said, quote, Huntress, for example, have serious childhood trauma, or where she was talking about all of these characters. And a lot of them, Huntress, for example, have serious childhood trauma, have serious mental illness like Harley. But I felt like sometimes you can't really go as deep with those things if you have to censor yourself. And I thought, Wouldn't it be liberating if we didn't have to worry about that and really go for it, and then later in the edit kind of find where the tone of the movie lies, end quote there. So that points to, again, not committing to the R rating, but let's just go ahead and go for it and do what we want to do here and tell the story that we want to tell. And then, as you said, we'll get to the edit and we'll figure it out. But it looks like they were going R rating the whole way. And certainly if we look at what's happened in the past several months since this set visit happened, certainly nothing that would inspire any lack of confidence from Warner Brothers at this point that this movie can't make a bunch of money even with an R rating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they put it in the Deadpool release date, or at least the first Deadpool. So, and that movie did okay with the R rating.
Yeah, that movie did okay. Joker did just fine.
So, yeah, the rating doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, the R rating's not really scaring anybody anymore, and certainly not at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, definitely not. Real quick, you mentioned that Harley's bat is in the movie, but I do love that it seems like she's also using the mallet this time.
Yep.
Did you guys see that? Did you get a photo op? Like, sometimes when they do these set visits, they let you pull the cool prop and.
There was a photo op on like a couch, but it was not like on the set, so it was like taken from one of the sets.
That's good. Like, hold the mallet on the trampoline. That would have been.
No. I did hold the mallet. I don't know. It was we didn't. The trampoline set was in the process of being built as we walked through it, so it was not. Although somebody was jumping on the trampoline, some stunt performer was rehearsing on the trampoline, and that looked like a lot of fun. But we did get to hold the mallet. I just don't. They have not sent us the. I have not yet received the picture of that they took of me with that mallet. Or actually, you know what? Maybe they did it with my own phone. Sometimes they take a photo and they do it with their own camera, so they send it to you later so you can't share it early.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember if maybe this was on my phone and I'm just forgetting. But yeah, I know if it was on my phone, I definitely wasn't allowed to share it. So good thing nobody hacked me.
All right. Well, good. So.
But yeah, we did. We saw that. We saw other assorted weapons. They weren't really. I think we saw a Huntress crossbow, but we didn't see. But obviously, with that, it's just more of like just a black little crossbow. Like, we're not really seeing, specifically. Harley's got the branded stuff, and the branded stuff we saw from her were the bat and the mallet.
Cool. So let's get to I feel like it's been the biggest bugaboo for most of the fans, which is the costumes.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about Roman Black Mask wearing the mask, and again, when you were there, you got the impression that probably wasn't going to happen. But now they showed footage in Brazil, which I assume you weren't in Brazil, because I wasn't in Brazil.
I did not make it to Brazil.
Me either. But apparently they showed the opening of the movie and then an additional trailer. If I'm remembering it correctly,
that was what I took away from the descriptions that I saw.
And so they did say that, Roman gets his mask, which is great. And then there were other news that the Huntress might get a more comic accurate look as well. So when you were there, like, were there any costumes that you saw that you were like, oh, good, that we haven't seen yet, or have we already seen them all?
Most of what we saw was, we saw a couple different Harley looks. The one with all the fringy, like, yellow caution tape around her arms, and like the jean shorts. Like, we saw that. I think we saw. We saw obviously the costume that Margot Robbie was wearing that day. So that was the stuff we saw from Harley. We saw kind of the black leathery costume that you see for Mary Elizabeth Winstead in the footage that's already been released. That has, which I guess doesn't make anybody feel any better, because that's the costume they don't feel great about. But yeah, that was the one that they showed us that day. So I did not see a super accurate Harley costume that I did not see when I was or in a super accurate Huntress costume, I should say. I didn't see anything like that. So if there's a new costume, then it would have been, I think, the product of reshoots, because Mary Elizabeth Winstead was obviously wearing a Huntress costume when they were shooting, as we were watching some of that principal photography, and that stuff was and that was again the look that everyone's already seen. So if they saw something better or something that people were more excited about at CCXP, that sounds to me like something that maybe got swapped out during reshoots or additional photography.
Gotcha. Well, I want to say my piece about the costume thing because, number one, like we've had a lot of comic book movies that haven't gone all in on the costumes, and this is the first time I remember people really making a fuss about it, which I find odd because it's not the first time it's happened. But I am one of those comic book fans that I'm like, no, I want my live action comic book characters to look like their comic book counterparts.
Right.
I don't expect it to be a one-to-one translation because I get it. It's now in real life and things have to be changed and alterations need to be made. But I still want to be, my test is always, if you show me that character, but don't tell me who it is, am I going to go, oh yeah, that's Huntress? Like, can I figure it out by how they look on my own? So I do tend to be more of like a no, put them in their darn costumes person, like your pal or like our pal Paul Herman, who does Marvel News with you. So I am one of those people, but at the same time, I am not like I don't feel that the outfits in Birds of Prey are as bad as some of the outrage makes them seem. Because for me, there's like, okay, let's say there's a scale 1 to 10. 1 being the Netflix Marvel shows where they don't wear anything and they're just wearing street clothes. They're all wearing hoodies.
Cheapest cosplay ever. Which
drove me nuts on those shows. And then 10 being, if let's take it to the DC world, 10 being like Aquaman, where like, those character costumes were straight off the page. They could not be more faithful if they tried, right? For me, what I'm seeing at Birds of Prey is sort of right in the middle at like a 5, where they are certainly not street clothes, but they aren't full-on comic book superhero costumes, but they're sort of right there in between. I like Harley's, she's always been a czar of fashion. She always wears a million different things. Hers, great, sure. She's got 100 new looks for the new movie. Terrific. More grist for the mill for cosplayers, I guess. Huntress, I think, looks really good. Mm-hmm. If you had shown me her, I'd go, yeah, okay, that's the Huntress. Sure, it's not as flamboyant. She doesn't have the big pointed mask, but I can tell that's Huntress. Black Canary, up until now, that did look like street clothes. And I'm like, got to give her something else. Like, give her something more. And then we just got a TV spot this morning where it looks like she gets something more. She gets something that's a little more superhero-y. And again, it's not the fishnets and the leather jacket, but it's still something that is not just jeans and a shirt. And I actually really like the look of it. It's a blink and you miss it in the commercial, but I go, oh, okay, great. She gets something that's a little more comic booky. So for me, the costumes, like, they're not as amazing as I hope they would be, but they're also enough where it's not a deal breaker. That's kind of where I'm standing on it.
Yeah, I really don't have much of an issue with the costumes. And I mean, I tend to prefer, I want to see costumes. I want to see the comic book costumes translated on the screen. We've had plenty of years of compromise of those things, from black leather X-Men suits to hoodies on Marvel on Netflix to where Iron Fist only wears a mask when he's training in Kunlun, and like there's nothing else. Like he's just wearing street clothes. Like it doesn't. And only Daredevil got a costume, and then they eventually took him out of the costume. So there's been plenty of those things where I've just been like, okay, I don't want to keep compromising the costumes that are great about these characters that have been a part of the appeal of these characters for decades. So I tend to want to see the costumes represented faithfully, but let's all be honest with ourselves. Who among us is 100% consistent with that rule? I mean, none of us are. Like, we all have different things that we're willing to be more compromising on. And it really comes down to, how much you love that look and care about that specific look. So if you're a diehard Huntress fan who likes the way that character has looked with the pointy mask and the whatever, and you always wanted to see that represented, and you're not seeing it in this, and you're a little bit bummed about that, I understand it. Because there are probably some costumes that would bug me more than others. Like, for example, it was a deal breaker for me whether or not Black Manta was going to have his big bubble head in Aquaman.
Yeah.
Like, that needed
absolutely.
to be there. And if it wasn't there, I'd have been like, well, that kind of sucks. So if that's where you're at for Huntress, I get it. But for me, though, I think Huntress looks like Huntress. And I am, as we've gone on with these movies, I mean, I think we've seen so many, for a while we were getting hardly any faithful representations of these costumes in the movies. And now I think we've had so many that I try to give these directors and costume designers and everybody, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt on this stuff. Like, I don't think they avoid it because I think there was an avoidance of this a long time ago that was based on, well, it's embarrassing. It's silly. Like this, we're not doing this because it's always a bad idea. And I don't really think that, I don't really think that mentality is part of it anymore. At least not at places like Warner Brothers or Marvel Studios. Maybe at Netflix it was a little bit. But I think for the most part, when we're seeing these changes to the costumes, it's not because people are embarrassed by it. It's not because they're saying that the costumes are stupid or the costumes from the comic books are stupid or whatever, or they don't work in live action. It's just saying it's not the right move for this film. And let's also give these characters a bit of time to kind of grow into their roles. Again, it's not an origin film for any one specific character, but it is an origin film for the team. Now, Harley, being the most fully formed of these characters, having already been in another film, that's why we're seeing her as just pure Harley, doing a bunch of different looks and they're all very Harley Quinn that we're seeing with all of these looks for Harley. So that's why she has, I think, the most fully formed aesthetic in the movie. Huntress seems to be on the path to that because she's, obviously she's got her own history and she's going after Roman. So we're seeing some of that, but there's another look that she could eventually graduate to, whether it happens in this film or potentially another one. And then Canary, I mean, we'll see what happens. I know there's the little flash of a costume, but most of what we're seeing has been the street clothes look. I couldn't really see her costume very well when we were on set because the angles that they were shooting, I was more hearing her than actually seeing her whole look. But I think it was more of kind of what we've seen previously with like the yellow top and everything. But anyway, I think that one doesn't have. Canary is the biggest departure for me based on the main team here. But I also get it because, I mean, the defining look of Canary is it's a bunch of black leather, and so, which maybe which clashes with Huntress, and you want to have a specific mentality and, emotional state that you're communicating with Huntress that you don't necessarily want to be the same thing, and you visually want them to stand out on screen. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't also give Canary more of a comic book design, but I also feel like we can get there. Like, we're getting plenty of comic booky stuff in this movie, in the visual palette of this movie. So if there are going to be a couple of departures here and there, I'm confident in saying that it's not because of any embarrassment or shame being thrown on the source material. It's just it's not what makes sense for these characters to be wearing at this point in their lives, at this point in their story. Harley, it makes all the sense in the world. Huntress, a little more sense. Canary's getting there.
No, makes perfect sense. And you're right. Like, when you look at the rest of the footage of the movie, this is not a movie that is embarrassed of its comic book roots.
Nope.
It's totally embracing that. So, and so that that does make me feel better about the whole thing. Like, if it was, again, I know they have their fans. I couldn't really get into them, the Netflix Marvel stuff, because they just felt so embarrassed that they were comic book shows. And it just turned me off. And this isn't that. Like, this isn't like, we don't want to, turn off the mainstream. It's like, no, they're embracing a very hyper realistic, exaggerated realistic reality for this comic book world, and then the looks of the characters are going to fit into that. So
in a movie where Harley Quinn gets to have a pet hyena, I think we can cut him a little slack on the costumes.
Yeah. So again, that's kind of where I stand. I am happy to hear that there is more to come, which is great. But even Roman Sionis's clothes prior to the mask are pretty fun.
I love
and
his
over
suits.
the top. Yeah, the suits are great. Like
and in person,
they're
they look
really
great.
cool.
I'm
they're
not
really
Ewan McGregor's
cool.
size. Otherwise, I would have walked off with one. But I mean, they would have stopped me. There's gates, but no.
Yeah,
those suits
even
look
Zaz
awesome.
has a very cool and unique look in this. So,
and he got his bleach blonde hair. So
Yeah.
it's not Tim Booth or whoever played him in Batman Begins with the shaved head. So we got Zaz, and he looks like Zaz.
Yeah. So all that, like that for me, again, it's not a deal breaker. I do sort of get the folks who are like, oh, why can't they do a little more? Because I am one of those folks, but I feel like they're doing enough where I'm not freaked out about it. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And again, everything else has me so much more excited. The cast, the sets, the action, all of that has me, to me, all looks really, really strong. And then the looks of the characters some look better than others, but I'm pretty much okay with all of it. So I'm really looking forward to the film. I wish I could have been in that fun house with you because to me, that just seems like the coolest thing.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, you got trampolines, you got like slides going into the trampolines. I mean, it's just, it looks like probably that had to be one of the coolest sets ever. I mean, I don't know whose job it was to strike that set, but I'll bet they had fun before they did. So
I sure hope so.
I mean, people got to be trying out the people had to have been trying out the trampolines. I know I would have, and then I probably would have been fired. But yeah,
worth it. What a way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. So we're moving forward on Birds of Prey. It'll be really interesting to see where it goes. I do think there's excitement for it. Again, I feel like it's a very unique comic book movie. I don't really think there's anything like it, which I think is a huge plus for it. We got some additional posters and stuff because, marketing for it is really starting to ramp up. I do think we'll probably get one more trailer for it prior to release because we got that quick little It teaser, but that was so short. Yeah. And then we got the first trailer, and then we just got this new little TV spot. But there's got to be another full trailer coming.
I mean, I was surprised that we didn't get the full trailer this week. I thought with the set visit embargo lifting that a trailer would kind of go with it, either at the same time or soon after or shortly before. I think maybe the strategy here must have been that they dropped one hell of a Wonder Woman 84 trailer on Sunday, and even though they had showed the Birds of Prey footage on Thursday, it was such a busy week for trailers last week. I mean, from Bond to Black Widow, I mean, everybody these last 2 weeks has been dropping their trailers. I mean, this is what happens as you get in, as you want
right before Christmas.
Yeah, everybody wants their blockbuster trailers attached to the Christmas releases. Happens every year. It's standard. But I understand not wanting to compete for that attention. At the same time, I want my damn Birds of Prey trailer attached to these movies. Although, I guess a lot of these movies are going to be PG or PG-13, though. And if Birds of Prey is R, then maybe they don't want to advertise to that crowd. But, there's a lot of people over age 17. You don't have to drop a Red Band trailer. Although, by the way, if they are going to commit to this idea of the movie being R-rated, and I think they already are committed to it, I think that when they drop the next trailer, that there should be a regular green band version for PG-13 showings of movies, but I also think there should be a red band version that shows what this movie's really going to do, and I think that would be a smart move, and I hope that drops sometime soon. There should definitely be another one between now and the February release of this film. I would have expected us to already have it, but maybe there's still time left in December for them to do it. If not, then early January, I'm sure we're going to get it.
Yeah, I think that the reason they didn't is because they wanted last week to be all about Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, let's just make it clean. This is the big debut for Wonder Woman marketing. Let's just focus on that. And then, in a few weeks, they can do the big final push for Birds of Prey leading up to the release in February.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. Any I kind of gave my thoughts on the film. I can't wait for it. I think it looks great. I'm excited about it. Some of the word that we got from the footage and the new trailer in Brazil made me even more excited. Again, hearing that Black Mask gets his mask. But a lot of what we're seeing is working for me, so put me on the plus side. And then, what are your kind of final impressions moving in as we get closer to release?
I mean, there is that part of me that's, it's not so much, it's certainly not pessimism. It's not really doubt. There is just that curiosity of this movie seems so eclectic. I mean, we talk about the influences, structurally it's Pulp Fiction meets Rashomon. Okay. With also mixed with The Professional. So when you look at that mix, like how exactly is this all, but I'm not going to get caught up on those things. Those influences are not as big a deal as people make them out to be. But, I am very curious about this movie. I'm not sure exactly how it's all going to come together, but what I saw from the film on set that day, I really liked. I mean, I walked, off the WB lot away from the set that day, very excited about what I had just seen and having some confidence in the movie. And then I liked the first trailer. I didn't absolutely love it. So I would like to have I guess it's tough though, because I mean, not every trailer is going to be that Wonder Woman 84 trailer where you're just like, well, shit, hell yeah. I want to have that kind of really emphatic, and positive reaction to the next Birds of Prey trailer. I really want to be blown away by it. I liked the first trailer, but it didn't knock my socks off, and so I'm kind of hoping for something a little bit bigger and bolder in the next trailer, and because I'm quite sure there will be another one. But overall, I'm still very excited about this movie. And obviously, I won't know what I think of it until I actually see it, but I'm going into it with a lot of confidence. And as I said, I mean, I respect Kathy Yan as a director for coming into this and really wanting to bring something different to it. And, because that's win, lose, or draw with Birds of Prey. I don't think that movie, would fail because it tries to be what everybody else is already trying to be, or repeat what somebody else has already done successfully. It's definitely coming into this world with its own identity, and I think that's a great place to start. And I think everybody's hearts are in the right place on this film, and I think so. I think that helps. And when you're doing a lot of cool, crazy action in camera, with these crazy, wacky sets, that's very comic booky, amusement mile types of sets, that all that kind of stuff is right up my alley. So I'm feeling pretty good about Birds of Prey and can't wait to see more from it. And then obviously the whole damn thing when we can.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, super fun. I'm glad you were able to share your experience on the set with us. So that is certainly appreciated. So let us know when you can talk about your trip to the Wonder Woman set.
I was not on set for Wonder Woman 84.
Boo.
No, I did.
They didn't invite you to the mall, go to Scoops Ahoy.
Yeah, yeah, I did not get to go to the set of Stranger Things 3, or season 3. No, I did not get the invite to Wonder Woman 84. So I guess they like me enough to invite me in LA or fly me to Toronto, but London's just too far.
Curses. Oh, well, still cool. So no, thanks so much for sharing that with us. It was really appreciated. But I want you to hang around for just a minute because, as always, we have to answer all of our listener questions as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox.
Sweet.
It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
All right, here we go. This is from Mark Bickford. It says, hey guys, I've got two questions. First, this is interesting. This is about the Crisis crossover. It says, who do you think will land the final killing blow to the Anti-Monitor on the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths? In the comics, it was Kal-El, the original Golden Age Superman from 1938. But he's not really on the CW. I can think of two alternatives, one being the granddaddy of the CW universe, Oliver Queen. He started it. The other option is Brandon Routh's Superman. The producers have said that he is, in fact, the same Superman from Superman Returns, just later, and by extension, it means he's actually the Christopher Reeve Superman. But what do you think? Second, Who would win in a bar fight between, in their primes, the Riddler, Han Solo, Rambo, the Roger Moore James Bond, and Roddy Piper? I wish you the happiest of holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Black Friday, whatever you do, Mark. Thanks, Mark. This has become a thing, Sean, is that people have been asking us some weird-ass questions, and they think it's funny that aren't Batman-related. We get like, what's your favorite Rocky movie? And I'm like, what? Why are you asking us this? And so now we get this. All these comedians, all these jokers out there. Okay. So Crisis, we did watch I watched the first 3 parts. Did you watch them yet?
No, I have not been able to watch Crisis yet. I am not caught up, but I am going to be watching it, but I'm just not caught up yet.
Yeah, well, spoilers, they haven't defeated the Anti-Monitor yet because we have 2 more episodes in the new year.
Right.
So,
I know we're at a little bit of a break right now, which is great. It's convenient for me. It gives me a chance to get caught up.
But yeah, so if someone lands a final blow on the Anti-Monitor, who do you think it would be?
I got to go Brandon Routh, Superman. I feel like even I totally understand the point of Oliver Queen, kicking this whole thing off, but I feel like he's going to get enough of his kind of send off and grand finale with his own show. So I don't think he necessarily needs to have that here. I kind of feel like Brandon Routh's Superman has been the featured attraction of this event since we found out that this was going to happen and he was going to be a part of it. So I kind of feel like that would be him, and he can't, they can't do this all the time. So, maybe it's maybe that's the end of this Superman story. Is he maybe this Brandon Routh Superman gets the final blow on the Anti-Monitor, and that really is the final blow, and he's never gonna come back. Although,
yeah, I mean, I could see it.
Again, with the ratings, they'll probably want to bring Brandon Routh back again. So maybe that's not it. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Brandon Routh / Christopher, by extension, Christopher Reeve Superman.
Right. I mean, I'm going to say Oliver Queen. Because I just feel like it would be sort of poetic, is like, this is his big last hurrah. And so to me, it would make sense that he would finish it off. So we will see. And then based on what happens in the first 3 episodes, it's possible. I'll just say that. And then who would win in a fight? The Riddler, Han Solo, Rambo, the Roger Moore James Bond, and Roddy Piper.
Well, I mean, Riddler's gone.
Right.
If we're just
He's not a bar fight kind of guy.
Yeah, not his deal. I do think Riddler would actually win by creating a trivia night that none of them could solve, and then in time to until they drank themselves into a stupor, and then he'd just lock them in and set the place on fire. So I mean, in that context, Riddler wins. But as far as just a straight up brawl, I don't know. Is Roddy Piper all out of bubblegum yet? Because if he is, then there's only one thing that he's there. There's only one thing left for him to do in this bar fight, so he immediately shoots up the rankings. But if he's still got bubblegum, then he's not, his heart's not in it yet. I mean, I right away start leaning more toward Rambo. I mean, that's what my gut feeling is. Rambo is gonna clean the place up. I don't know. Are weapons allowed? Like, what kind of bar fight is this?
I don't know.
Is it just can you bring weapons in, or are you only allowed to use what's within reach at the bar? So, I mean, Han's pretty decent with a blaster, but
everyone else would shoot first, and so Han would be toast.
Yeah, well, yeah. Which Han? So, like, if it's the Han who shoots first, then he already shot everybody, and there is no fight. But if it's the re-edited Han / McClunky, then I guess we're gonna. I guess I'm leaning Rambo.
I think the actual answer would be Rambo. He can take out lots of guys, so going with him. All right, next.
I think he's got the highest body count of any of those groups.
I would think so.
Unless you're crediting Han for other people blowing up Death Stars,
right?
And everybody who'd be on those. Yeah, I got to go Rambo.
All right, next message is from Major Lee. It says, this is my first time writing in. My first episode was your Joker review. Do you know why comic book movies from the 90s like Dick Tracy, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, The Phantom, and Barbed Wire were not successful? Also, could there have been a crossover movie with Warren Beatty, Billy Campbell, Alec Baldwin, Billy Zane, and Pamela Anderson as these characters in the 90s? Major, thank you. Well, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you found us, and thank you for writing in. So, what do you think? These failed franchise launchers from the 90s. Sean, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I adore Dick Tracy. I absolutely love that movie. Loved it when I was a kid and loved it ever since. I mean, so I as to why that wasn't successful, I don't really know.
Here's the thing: Dick Tracy was kind of successful.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't
of these. Dick Tracy was the most successful. It just wasn't as successful as Disney wanted it to be, and so they just kind of. And then there was disagreement between Disney and Warren Beatty, and it just died on the vine.
There are still rights issues plaguing those. Yeah, I think. I don't remember which studio had what of all those properties, but I don't think they were all at the same place. So the idea of a crossover...
Dick Tracy was Disney, Rocketeer was Disney.
Yeah.
The Shadow was Universal. Right. The Phantom was Paramount. And Barbed Wire, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's where I'm lost. I don't know who had Barbed Wire, but either way, that one I don't even care about. So the other stuff, it's all split up. So the idea of a shared universe, a Justice League or Avengers version of Dick Tracy the Phantom. I mean, in a lot of ways it's cool because it's these 1930s and 40s pulp heroes. So I totally get it. It would have been pretty rad if something like that had happened, but obviously with intellectual property law and licensing being what they are, they weren't possible. But as far as why they weren't successful, well, Dick Tracy was a moderate success. So as far as the other ones, I mean, I don't really think they ever got, I don't think they got the love that they deserved as far as the quality. I mean, I have some affection for The Shadow and also some affection for The Phantom. I do like that movie, but I also understand that I liked those movies because I was the kid who grew up just loving superheroes. So I was handing out passes pretty freely and easily for 1990 superhero movies. It's is it a comic? Is it based on a comic book or something else I like? Cool. Here you go. Here's your pass.
I like it. Yep. Same here.
I am automatically a fan. Here we go. I didn't really have discerning taste in my superhero movies at that point in my life, but other people did. And so because they did, I think that had a lot to do with those movies. I mean, you look at those films. I mean, they certainly don't, visually, they don't come across with the quality of even other things in the era, like the Batman movies look like they have much better production value than what you're getting from Phantom and all these things. And also, these heroes, if you go back to it, I mean, you look at the Phantom, it's I didn't know what the Phantom was actually until they were making a movie. I didn't know what that was because that wasn't one of the more mainstream Marvel or DC superheroes. So I think what you had with the 90s was you had this rush of the Batman movies are successful. Superman movies kind of had a nice run. We want to make superhero movies, but it's not possible to make the DC or Marvel movies with the superpowered characters that can do more than just fly and have super strength. We can't, the powers that they have are not things that we can achieve in a way that's going to look good and that we can also do in a cost-effective way. Which heroes can we do for relatively cheap? Oh, and it's going to be the characters who don't really have superpowers, who are kind of Batman-esque. So and Batman was inspired by some of those pulp type of comic book superheroes and things like that. So I think that's kind of what it was, is people trying to find something achievable on a budget that would be similar to Batman, as opposed to really trying to go after the properties that would have been the most in demand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I like most of these movies too. The only one I haven't seen is Barbed Wire. I've never seen the full film. Any good. Yeah. But I pretty much like the other four to one degree or another. I wish they would do a crossover. I think that'd be amazing. If they had all been, well, at least Dick Tracy and the Rocketeer, at least those were at the same studio, so that could have happened.
Yeah, but now I think Warren Beatty still holds the rights, or thinks he does, and is fighting with people over that. I still don't know where that's ended up. And yeah, I mean, I would love it to have something like that with those heroes coming together in a crossover event. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, totally. And I think I've mentioned it on this show, but I've mentioned it before, is that The Rocketeer is still in my top 10 superhero movies of all time. I love The Rocketeer unabashedly. I think it's terrific. But yeah, why did they not connect? I think that Sean was onto something, is they were trying to chase Batman, but doing it with properties that aren't Batman. And so they were just tougher sells. And it was in a much more crowded marketplace where the whole world wasn't just lining up for every comic book movie. They were still lining up for big Arnold Schwarzenegger movies or Kevin Costner movies. It was just a different theatrical landscape. And I say Kevin Costner because the big reason that The Rocketeer didn't do well is because it was flanked by Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Kevin Costner, and Terminator 2 Judgment Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it just didn't have a prayer between those two, which is heartbreaking still to this day. It was just a different summer movie landscape, and it was really hard for The Rocketeer to stand out, or The Phantom, or The Shadow. So, yeah, I remember
I remember being excited about The Phantom, and, I was all in. Slam Evil on the poster and everything. And
hell yeah.
I was all about that movie. And I remember, I think that might have been one of the key moments in, me realizing that I was maybe a little bit different than the other kids my age. It's like, as far as how into superheroes I was, it's like, I was talking about, oh, can't you, I can't wait to see The Phantom. And everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the little kid version of what the hell are you talking about? Like, what do you mean The Phantom? Like, what the hell even is that? And I'm trying to be like, well, it's a superhero in a purple costume. He looks rad. This is awesome.
Yeah, he slams evil guys.
And I was the only one, in my group of friends, or even, whatever social circle I had, I was the only one who gave this, who cared at all about that movie. Nobody else even really knew it existed. And I think for anybody who might have been even somewhat aware of that movie, it's like, what is The Phantom? Well, it's kind of like Indiana Jones, but less interesting. But it is a superhero. It's kind of that's kind of the vibe they went for. They did try to, and it does have some Indiana Jones stuff to it with that type of adventure. But yeah, it just didn't land with an audience.
Yeah, very true. All right, moving on. This is Stephen Marshall. It says, hey guys, Henry Cavill's recent comments about Superman, I don't think it's the same as when Affleck said he'd be an ape on the ground for Matt Reeves. Henry didn't dance around it when asked about the role. He also said the status is you'll see, which is telling that something may be happening. There are also things to factor in, such as Henry hasn't been taking questions about Superman for some time, but this time he did. Also, Henry's agent is the same as The Rock, and they have been talking about Superman a lot lately. You may disagree. I just think all things considered, there's more to this than just Henry saying he still wants to be Superman. I've been wondering, will you do a revisit of BVS at some point? It'd be interesting to get your views on the film and see how they differ from when you first saw it. Lastly, do you consider films such as Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Batman Returns, Shazam, movies that are set at Christmas but not about Christmas movies? Kind regards, Steven. Steven, thank you for the message. So the first thing Steven's referring to is Henry's recent comments about when they said, oh, are you still Superman? And he said something about oh, cape's in the closet, the status is you'll see. I think there are a lot of great stories still to tell with Superman. And Jamie and I were both like, well, listen, he says he still wants to play Superman, but he's not saying he still is going to, right. It was a safe answer where he couldn't give a real answer. So that was where we stood, and I still think that's kind of the case, but I think that the point is that I don't think the door is completely closed, which is why he was so careful when answering, because I think he does still want to continue, but it's also why he couldn't give anything concrete. So again, it's not exactly the same as when Affleck danced around the question, but it's similar. I get what you're saying, Steven, but I also think that you have some, I think hope is coloring your perception a little bit. And I get that because I'd love him to come back too. But I just think that, yes, there's still a chance. And as long as there is still a chance, he doesn't want to, he wants to keep that option open. Sean, thoughts?
I think just because WB hasn't formally dismissed him, if he's the guy who comes out and says he's not Superman anymore when nobody else has said that, he's the guy who ended the relationship. Right? I mean, he's the guy who walked away from being Superman as opposed to was no longer invited to be playing Superman. So I think that informs what he's saying. I think the door is closed on Henry Cavill playing Superman. I don't think it's going to happen again. Maybe it's not locked. Maybe they can walk back through it. But I think for all intents and purposes right now, the door is closed. There's been plenty of time, ample opportunity. I mean, Henry Cavill and Christopher McQuarrie were, spitballing ideas for Superman on the set of Mission Impossible. And if they have an idea together to go make a Superman movie, and with as successful as McQuarrie's Mission Impossible films have been, if that doesn't get WB fired up to go make more Superman movies with Henry Cavill, I don't really think anything will. And I think, you go back to the episode of the Batman News podcast that you and I recorded when we found out Ben Affleck wasn't directing Batman anymore. I said then I don't think he's going to be playing Batman. I mean, I had already been saying that for a while. I thought that was done post Justice League. And then with Henry Cavill, I mean, I think that I appreciate that he shares a manager with Dwayne Johnson, and maybe that's a little bit of hope to cling to. But that's all it really is that little piece of hope. I don't really think Warner Brothers is that interested in continuing to do business with Henry Cavill as Superman, because it's not his fault. I don't hang it on Henry Cavill because I don't think he's done a bad job playing Superman, but he and Ben Affleck were the faces of a time period for DC movies that was not universally successful. And that has nothing to do with anybody's individual assessments of what they do or don't like about the movies. The overall perception of that time period and the overall evaluation of that time period is that it wasn't great. And Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck were right there in the middle of it. And so I think from a general audience perspective, I mean, for a lot of DC fans, for people who've been fans of these movies, or even people who maybe didn't like BVS but still like Man of Steel, and so they still like Henry Cavill as Superman for whatever, through however many films or for whatever reasons they have, I think the general audience thing is that Henry Cavill is the face of a Superman that wasn't all that successful. And so I think it's tough to market Henry Cavill as Superman at this point. And I think WB knows that, and I think that's why they're not throwing support his way. It's not hard to make a Superman. Well, it's hard to make any film. It's hard to make any film and have it be great. But Superman is not uniquely challenging, or not more challenging than anything else that Warner Brothers has been working on in the DC front. And they have a guy who can play Superman, and they've had him there for a long time, and they're not turning to him. They're not trusting him with it. That tells me all I need to know. I don't think Warner Brothers is interested in bringing Henry Cavill back to play Superman. Maybe something else will happen that changes their mind, but right now I think they have no interest in it. All
right. I mean, I get it. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and yeah, as much as I would love him to continue, I do think that they almost see him as maybe damaged goods at this point, which I don't think is fair, but that very well might be where they come from. And I think there was an article that came out like a week ago or 2 weeks ago that was like, Warner Brothers doesn't know what to do with Superman. And all of us fans are like, really? You don't? Like, it's not, why are you acting like it's this impossible puzzle? It's freaking Superman. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's as likable of a superhero as they get. And that if you can't figure out what to do with Superman, then get out of the business of making comic book based superhero movies, or hire somebody else to come in and do that for you. Because as I said, Superman is not it's not a higher degree of difficulty than other characters that they're making movies about. Yeah. And to your point, like, if Christopher McQuarrie and Henry Cavill really wanted to make a Superman together, that should have been it. That should have been great. Let's do it. What else is there to say? If you like the idea of Henry Cavill playing Superman, and you have
a top flight director with a proven track record ready to team up with this guy, that's it. Like that,
do it.
That should have been the thing that for Warner Brothers you were waiting on, to say, great, here's an awesome director with this amazing track record with these movies, who now wants to team up with this guy that we've still got set up who can play Superman for us. That should have been it. And the fact that it wasn't, I think says that that tells me, along with other things, that Warner Brothers, they don't want to be in business with Henry Cavill, at least not as it relates to Superman right now.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's not. I'm not saying it's fair to Henry Cavill, but it's also not about fair. It's just about what it is.
Right. Revisiting BVS at some point, yeah, of course. I see no reason why not. And then movies like Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Batman Returns, and Shazam, Christmas movies. For me, yes, I watched those interspersed with A Christmas Story and Elf and Christmas Vacation. But yeah, no, I'm excited that this year I get to watch Shazam at Christmas. Sean?
I don't understand the debate over what is and isn't a Christmas movie.
I don't either.
Is anybody else really
silly.
letting the internet curate for them their holiday playlist? Like, is anybody actually doing that? Because outside of that, who cares? I mean, I watch Die Hard every year around the holidays. I watch it other times too, but I always watch it around the holidays. Shazam is now going to be a regular part of that rotation. Iron Man 3 is a part of that rotation. I'm one of the rare defenders of that film from the MCU. I love Iron Man 3, and I watch that every year during Christmas time. I like holiday movies in general. I also like movies that are set during the holidays, and I also like superhero movies and action films. So if you're giving me things that can check off multiple boxes, check off several of those boxes at once, I'm all for it. And yes, to me, they are Christmas movies, but the only definition of a Christmas movie or holiday movie that I care about is my own, because I'm the one who's going to sit there on the couch watching them during my holiday season. You can curate your own list. So my answer is, if they're Christmas movies to you, then they are, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. If I want to watch Die Hard at Christmas, because I think it's a Christmas movie, and you don't, I'm not going to drag you into my house at gunpoint and force you to watch it for Christmas. I'm just going to watch it for Christmas. All right. Next message from Bobby Hernandez. Oh, this one is not really Batman related. He says, how do you like living in China? Can you speak the language? And are there Panda Expresses in China? Sorry, this isn't Batman related. Thanks for everything. I'm a Patreon supporter. That's how much I love the show. Happy holidays, Bobby. Thanks, Bobby. How do I like living in China? I like it fine. There was a lot of adjustment in the first couple months because it's the other side of the world and it's complete culture shock. So very simple everyday things got very complicated, like going to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store and it took me so long to find very simple things because I can't read the labels. And I couldn't figure out where stuff was. And I was just like, I only need to buy a couple groceries. Why is this so hard? But I learned. And then like going to the bank, like just little normal things take some learning. But now I've learned most of those. I like it. Beijing is a very modern, fast-paced city, like any big city, and I like that. And I like where I live because I can walk to 100 different things. It's like living downtown Chicago or downtown New York. It's just downtown Beijing. I am taking lessons in Mandarin. It's going okay. I learned just enough to get by, and then there are no Panda Expresses, which is heartbreaking. So for people who are like, if I ever moved to China, I'd live on orange chicken, the bad news is no, you won't. But fun fact, they love KFC. So if you like KFC, you can find that really easily.
Good to know.
But yeah, thank you for taking an interest in my China adventures. Also, it's really fun getting my hair cut because I put my little like instructions into Google Translate and I show them. And I always put the same instructions, but then they always just cut my hair however they want to. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. I'll go with this, whatever you do. So, All right, this message is from Mick Hucknall. It says, hey, it's Mick, longtime listener, first-time emailer. I was wondering if you ever watched Barney the Dinosaur. Andy, I know you love Jurassic Park. I wasn't sure if you were a fan of this or not. It was great for me learning when I was growing up. It taught me how to be a good person and learn good morals. I also learned who stole the cookies from the cookie jar. Thanks for your time. Speak to you soon. Same Barney place, same Barney channel. See, I think Mick is one of those jokers that I was talking about.
Yeah, I did not watch Barney. The Barney kind of took flight after I was a little bit after I had aged out of Barney's Target demo. So that's a no for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm much more Jurassic Park, much less Barney.
Yep, totally.
Next is from Jesse Willis. Hey, Holy BatCast family. Happy Thanksgiving. So, see, it's been a couple weeks since my last episode. It says, do you remember the Superboy syndicated show from the 80s? What memories do you have of the show? Thank you, Jesse. And, of course, I remember it. I think it's on DC Universe, so you can enjoy it in its entirety. Sean, did you used to watch the Superboy show?
Not faithfully, but also in the 80s. I mean, I wasn't... I was born in 83, so I wasn't making a lot of my own television programming decisions exclusively for myself while that show was going. So, whatever my parents were kind enough to tape for me or let me know what was going on in the TV guide. So, but yeah, I certainly can't claim to have seen every episode, but I do remember it, and I do remember enjoying it because, as I said, I mean, growing up for the part of the 80s that I was present for, and then through the 90s. If it was a superhero, I was pretty into it.
Yep, same. And back then, I was happy I'd take what I could get. So
yeah, if Barney wore a cape, he might have got me.
See? Yeah, I didn't watch it religiously, but it was one of those, like, if I came across it, I would watch it because, yeah, it was a superhero. And I have quite a few comics that were based on the Superboy syndicated show. And I also thought it was very odd that they recast Superboy. But between two of the seasons. So there was Gerard Christopher and, oh my God, he was a guy with 3 names. Darn it. It's something like Michael Clark Duncan, but obviously it's not Michael Clark Duncan, but I want to say Duncan is in there somewhere. But yeah, I always thought it was weird that they actually recast the lead,
Yeah.
You recast other people in the show, but to recast Superboy himself is super odd, and I'm sure there's someone out there who knows why they did that. But so it seems like Gerard Christopher did most of the show, according to this.
Right.
And then where the heck is the other Superboy?
John Newton? Oh no, that's well, yeah, it says Clark Kent / Superboy. John Newton is what I see here.
Huh. Weird. I can't find it. Like, why would it not be on the front page of this? Oh, yeah. 26 episodes, John Newton. So I don't know why I thought he had 3 names. I was thinking, that guy. You're right. John Newton and Gerard Christopher. Which I do remember seeing John Newton in passing at Universal Studios Hollywood once.
Oh, really?
So there's a memory. Because I walked past him, I was like, wait, I know that guy. And then I went, oh, he was Superboy. Because I also think he was on, like, Melrose Place, maybe?
Might have been.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was a show.
He was on Melrose Place. He was.
Hey! See?
Oh, and he did have 3 names. So there was a while in his career where he went by John Hames Newton.
Okay. See? Okay, I'm not crazy. Thank you, Sean. I was like, that's weird. Why would I remember that? But yeah, so there you go. It's one of those things that, like, on DC Universe, I do want to revisit at a certain point just because I think it'd be fun. Plus, it's shot in Orlando, Florida, and I used to live in Orlando, Florida, so I love it for that, too.
Oh, nice.
There's one episode that is amazing that I did rewatch as soon as I got DC Universe. It's called Hollywood. Because in it, he goes back in time to the golden age of Hollywood, and the whole episode was shot at the then Disney MGM Studios. Now it's called Disney's Hollywood Studios. But having worked there for many years, I watched that episode, and I knew where everything was. It was hysterical.
That's amazing.
Yeah. All right, next message is from CJ Higgins. It says, "Hey, Bat fans, I wanted to say that you should add Logansport, Indiana to your travel destinations. There's a man known as Mark Raykop who builds custom Batmobiles from the 60s series and movie. I made a post in the Real Fans group and added pictures of his current progress. He's licensed by WB and DC and holding the torch for the man who came before him, especially the man who designed the Ford Futura. So check him out and his story. It's a great one, and it's really true. Not just Batman, but a big fan of Adam West. May he rest in peace. CJ Higgins." Oh, see, thanks, CJ. I had not heard of that.
I have been to Logansport multiple times.
Really?
Yeah, I got.
What?
I have.
What brought you there?
A family that lived there. So yeah, I am familiar with Logansport, Indiana, but I have not been there in many, many years because people who live there have either since passed away or moved on. So. Yeah, I've not been back there in a very long time. But so back when I was there, I did not know there was a guy building Batmobiles. That would have been. But I did subsequently hear about that. I think I heard about that because I still have family that live in different parts of Indiana, and I think one of them clued me in on one of their last visits out here that there was a guy that was doing that. But yeah, we didn't know about that back when I was last visiting Logansport.
Huh. Well, my family's in Illinois, so maybe I take the nephews on a little road trip to see some Batmobiles.
There you go.
Cool. All right, this message from Mark Jurasevic. It says, "Hey guys, thank you as always for your infectious enthusiasm about Batman and DC. In the spirit of the Crisis event on DC, JSA is in the Black Adam movie and also will be appearing in Stargirl. I was wondering, would you think about reviewing some of the Team Up Smallville episodes? Smallville set the tone for the future CW shows, setting up characters such as Green Arrow, Aquaman, and Impulse in individual episodes and then bringing them together for some events. The Season 6 episode Justice is one of them. Another one of interest is Season 9, Absolute Justice, which starred Hawkman, Dr. Fate, and Stargirl. Take it easy, Mark." Thanks, Mark. Number one, I like that you explained that as if I didn't watch all of Smallville. Come on, Mark. Give me a little credit. I watched every episode of that show. I remember the kryptonite gum. I remember the witches who possessed Lana. I remember that weird cave, that they were always in that freaking cave with the stones, and it told the story of Jor-El and stuff. Oh, man, I remember all of it. And you better believe I was psyched when they did Justice and Absolute Justice. Those were, that was when I thought, oh, I'll never get a Justice League movie, but this'll have to do. So, no. In the later episodes of Smallville, when they started bringing in more of the DC universe, I was all about it. I loved it. It would be fun to look back at those. We'll have to figure out when, but I like the recommendation. But yeah, all that stuff was super fun. Sean?
Yeah, well, I can't make programming decisions for your show, but I was never a big, I'll be honest, I was never a big Smallville fan. I gave it several opportunities and I just could not really, I don't know. I just wasn't able to get into Smallville. No disrespect to anybody who loves the show. It certainly has its fans and deservedly so. But yeah, I would not be a good guest for you on any episode where you're revisiting Smallville.
Well, you know what it was? Smallville had its ups and downs, but I loved it. But it was in the era when, we were getting nothing else DC.
That's true.
That was, pre-Batman Begins. On the big screen, there was nothing. And as far as TV, it was Smallville and Smallville only. So, yeah, I watched it religiously because it was the only DC content I was getting.
Yeah, I think that was why I kept coming back to Smallville to give it some opportunities, but I just couldn't stick with it, and I just kept going back and rewatching Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. All right, let's do one more, and then it's late where you are, so let's get you to bed. This is from Devin Stanley. It says, "Hey, Andy and the rotating second chair." That's funny because We got a new second chair this time. 2 questions. DC related. What did you think of Titans Season 2? I thought the first half was amazing, but the second half had 4 boring filler episodes and then a lame finale. Season 1 set up the team. Season 2 restarted it all and set up an entirely different team. Enough setup, just let me see the damn team. 2, not DC related. I've never been to Taco Bell. I'm so sorry, but you've convinced me to try it. What's your go-to order? Thanks for all that you do, and happy holidays, Devin. Thanks, Devin. All right, DC related. Titans Season 2. Now, first of all, I am going to dive into this deeper very soon, later this week, so be patient. But yeah, we're going to talk about Season 2 of Titans on one of the next episodes. So, Sean, are you up to date on Titans?
No, I am not up to date on Titans. I still haven't even seen Season 1. It's just I really didn't like that Comic-Con trailer from a year and a half ago, and they just kind of lost me at F Batman. I know the show's more than that, and I need to get over my hangups. I think the Nightwing costume looks great, and maybe that's enough to kind of get me over the hump and finally give the show a chance. But yeah, I've loved other stuff on DC Universe. I mean, Doom Patrol remains the highlight for me of DC Universe thus far. But yeah, I haven't give Titans a chance, so I can't say I cannot provide it, or I cannot provide anybody with a fair assessment because, like I said, I haven't tried it.
Okay, you should. You should. Like, I get the F Batman thing, but the show is worth your time. It's good. Season 2, I understand where you're coming from, Devin. I do. And I think you have some points, but overall, I still enjoyed it. And again, I'll talk about that very soon. And then Taco Bell. How could you've never been to Taco Bell? Unless you don't live in the States, then maybe it's not as convenient. But if you live in the USA, like Taco Bell. And I think Devin asked this, Sean, because Taco Bell is like one of the things I cannot get in China. And I vent about it a lot because I miss it because it's my favorite.
Yeah, I am not a Taco Bell fan at all. I have one that's really not at all far from where I live. I mean, it's a short walk, never mind a short drive. And I always forget that it's there because I do not go to Taco Bell.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I prefer actual tacos.
I like those too.
I can't. Yeah, there's never been. And of course, I mean, it's fast food. So no matter what, like even if you hate a fast food place, like you end up trying it a bunch of times just for the sake of convenience. But Taco Bell I've stayed away from for a long time because I've had plenty of different things there trying to find something that I like, and I've just been unsuccessful each and every time. Taco Bell's just not my jam. So if I were in China, I wouldn't miss it.
Sad. Yeah, it is my favorite. I miss it. My go-to is a Nacho Supreme and a beefy 5-layer burrito.
A Nacho Supreme's not bad. I can do the Nacho Supreme. That's tolerable from Taco Bell. What's the cheeseburger situation like in China? Because that would kill me.
Yeah, you can get them. There is a place that is literally right outside my door of my apartment building, and it's called the Blue Frog. And it's sort of a Western-y restaurant. And they have Cheeseburger Mondays where it's buy one, get one free.
Oh, man.
And so I take advantage of that far too often. And they're good. They're not the best cheeseburgers you've ever had, but for being in China, they are good cheeseburgers, and I will take it. So no, you can get cheeseburgers here. And there are quite a few places that have pretty darn good ones. So fortunately, that's not too big of an issue.
Yeah. See, as long as I've got access to decent cheeseburgers, I can survive. Well, good. Because I have access to decent cheeseburgers, it means I won't survive because I'll continue eating them. Yeah, I will enjoy the time that I have.
Yeah, when we learned about Cheeseburger Mondays, buy one get one free. Oh man, it's just so tempting. Yeah, and the other thing is living in China. Going out to eat is relatively cheap.
Well, that's nice.
Than what it is in the States. Like, I mean, there are some places that are a little more expensive, but on average, I would say you pay half to 2/3 the price that you would pay in the States.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal.
So that's pretty good. Like, there's this Italian place out here that's like really good, and we go, and for two of us, and like we don't like, you know, we don't order just one thing, but like for like 2 sodas, 2 appetizers, and 2 entrees, it's like it comes to like $30.
Yeah, that's not bad at all for 2 people.
It's
That's
like,
awesome.
it's like amazing. So that's always a nice thing. And then, yeah, the buy one, get one cheeseburger is just as good. So sorry, that was a tangent. I think I'm hungry. It's almost dinner time. Yeah. But anyway, that's where we're going to close the Wayne Manor mailbox because, folks, as I mentioned, it had been a few weeks since the last episode. Thank you guys for your patience. If you do follow me on social media, I've been bouncing all over the darn place. So thank you for your patience. But the good news or bad news, depending on where you stand, is that I'm going to get a few episodes done over the next few days. And so we will chip away at the Wayne Manor mailbox as we get through that. But Sean, thanks for letting me get a head start.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It was fun.
But we'll close the Wayne Manor mailbox for now. We will open it again in a day or so. And if you've got a message or a question for the mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. But that is where we're going to wrap up this episode of the show. Sean, always a pleasure having you back. Great getting to chat with you today.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know we still chat fairly regularly via messenger, but it's nice to be able to do this. I think because the last couple times I've been on the show, I don't think I was actually talking to you. I got to do a little bit for the 200th episode, and then that Joker non-spoiler review that I recorded for Holy BatCast. But yeah, it's been a while since I got to be on Holy BatCast and actually talk to the host of Holy BatCast. So this was
true.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think you said last time, you're like, I don't get to talk about DC nearly as much anymore. So
no, yeah, I mean, I do not currently have a platform, at least not in podcasting, where I regularly do that. So it's nice to come on Holy BatCast.
Well, I'm keeping you in my back pocket because I'll tell you the worst thing about living in China, trying to schedule podcasts.
Well,
it's hard enough when you're in the States.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. Scheduling podcasts is terrible.
It's the worst.
Yep.
But I'm glad we made this work. Thanks for staying up late for us. Tell the folks where they can find you if they want to hear you talking about other stuff.
Sure. So there's 2 places you can find me in the world or realm of podcasting. If you want to hear me talk about Marvel, the name of that podcast is Marvel Studios News. If you want to hear me talk about Star Wars, I have a relatively new podcast. It's coming up on a 1-year anniversary, although it really got going over these past couple of months. It's called Fantabulous. I host that with a good friend of mine named John Beerley. I obviously host Marvel Studios News with my pal Paul Herman. But yeah, for Fantabulous, we've been going episode by episode with spoiler reviews of The Mandalorian. So if you're checking that out and enjoying it on Disney Plus, you might enjoy the most recent episodes of Fantabulous. And not that there's all that many places that are fun to talk about Star Wars these days, but I think we've got one. So check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And then on Twitter, still Mr. Sean Gerber?
Yeah, Twitter at Mr. Sean Gerber, Sean spelled S-E-A-N.
Sweet. All right. Well, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Sean. That will do it for this episode. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us and for downloading the show. Please do subscribe so you never miss an episode, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Visit holybatcast.com. Follow Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you will find us. Again, if you got any thoughts for the Wayne Manor mailbox, that email address is holybatcast at rf4rm.com. We still have the voicemail line, though people don't really use it, but we have it. It's at 323-366-9246. But that will do it for episode, what are we? 237. So on behalf of Sean, I've been Andy. We will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by real fans for real movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.